Hey everybody, just a little supplemental material here on transformations on f of x. Any function, for that matter, could be absolute value, square root, quadratic, linear, it does not matter. These rules will apply to transformations on f of x. So as you can see here, I've got this laid out. My vertical transformations are going to be related to a and d. Okay, so any vertical transformations will be attained by working with A and with D. Okay, A obviously represents the stretch or the shrink or the reflection over the x-axis. Okay, and D represents a translation or a shift. So if D is less than 0, that's a shift down. If D is greater than 0, that's a shift up. If A is between 0 and 1, that's a shrink. If A is greater than 1, that's a stretch. And if A is less than 0, there would be a reflection happening. Now, the order in which transformations can occur in the vertical sense, you always want to start with A first and then work your way out to D. So with the order of operations, clearly multiplication would come before addition. Therefore, when doing any sort of vertical transformation, always perform whatever is happening with regards to A, and then second, perform whatever is happening with regards to D. So vertical alone, when you think about vertical transformations, perform them in the order A and then D. So any sort of stretch, shrink, reflection, and then a shift up or down. Okay, with horizontal transformations, of course, you've got B and you've got C. All right, so what B is very similar to A. Would be either a stretch, it would be a shrink, or possibly a reflection. Now, the orientation of the stretch or shrink is the opposite of the vertical. Therefore, if B is between 0 and 1, that would be a stretch, unlike the vertical, where if A was between 0 and 1, that would be a shrink. So those two are flip-flopped. If B is greater than 1, that would be a shrink. And if B is less than 0, it could be either a stretch or shrink, as well as a reflection for sure. Okay, C is your horizontal translation. Okay, so your shift. Okay, notice that you have minus C. So for example, if you had f of x equals x minus 2 quantity squared, well, that parent function is x squared. X squared in this case is being shifted to the right 2 units. Okay, so it's always the opposite of the sign that you would expect on the inside. Okay, so two different things that I want to talk about with horizontal. There's two different ways that you can order the horizontal transformations. Vertical should always be the same. Okay, it should be A then D. Okay, but horizontal, it depends on the form in which that comes. So, for example, if f of x is equal to the absolute value of 2x minus 4. Okay, that can be written in two different forms. Okay, so we could have these two different forms written for the same function. Now the two functions would have different orders in which you'd transform it horizontally. First of all, in this case, we would perform from outside in. So with the vertical transformations, we performed in the order of operations. Horizontal transformations, you go in the opposite order. Therefore, what we would do is we'd have a horizontal translation. So our first transformation that we would perform would be we would shift the function 4 units to the right. The second transformation would be to then shrink by a factor of 1/2. Okay, now it's going to look slightly different in the second example, but it is the same function. Therefore, the two graphs should end up in the exact same place. Okay, so the order of the transformations now, since we've got the 2 on the outside and then this 2 on the inside, we're going to work from the outside in instead of order of operations working inside out. Okay, so I'm going to shrink by a factor of 1/2 first, and then shift to the right 2 units. Okay? All right, now I shouldn't have put these arrows here. This is probably confusing. Okay, just because the shifts, I was using the arrow for the direction. Okay, but always, and it just for me personally, I like this form right here. This is my personal horizontal transformation form. It's very helpful for me. Maybe it isn't for you. Whatever you feel most comfortable with, again, make sure that you're utilizing that and being consistent. That's the most important part. All right, that's a little bit on order of transformations. The last thing I would like to say, sorry, I didn't finish it up, is that it doesn't matter whether you perform vertical first, then horizontal, or horizontal, then vertical. Totally up to you. Those two are totally distinct, won't matter as long as you do within vertical the correct order and within horizontal the correct order. All right, guys, have a great day. We will see you in the next video.